Hello and welcome to episode 2 of today's podcast. Now, today is a really special one. I've been waiting to do this episode for a very long time. We're here talking with Nina Keogh. She is a cast member of The Friendly Giant. I've been wanting to do this episode for a long time, so let's get to it. I'm so anxious. Hello, Nina.
I'm not as anxious as you are.
Oh man, Friendly Giant has been.
I'm not anxious.
Friendly Giant is the pinnacle of Canadian of kids TV. There isn't a person on this planet that doesn't know, or at least not Canadian on this planet, that doesn't know of the Friendly Giant in some form or the other. Whether it be the castle, whether it be if they saw it at the CBC Museum all those years ago, or anything. There's not a person, and I'm so excited to talk to you about this. So let's get right going. What started you on the Friendly Giant?
My parents were puppeteers at the CBC and puppet builders for a long time, going way back into the early 50s. And Friendly Giant was on, it was a 15-minute show, and occasionally they would have a half-hour special. So they needed extra puppeteers. So at age 11, I was asked to come on and operate a couple of puppets there. And I'd already been involved with our family's theater and just growing up with hundreds of puppets in our house and studio. And so I came on. That was my first TV job at age 11. And I just loved it. I loved being in the studio and the excitement of, the all the equipment and the monitors and camera people and all of that stuff. And of course, having watched it myself when I was younger, it was pretty exciting to get on to the show. And then I'd say 10 years later, I started doing it every week, so permanently.
Wow. What was it like on set? Like I hear so many great things about the Friendly Giant, about how relaxed it was on set. So tell me, how was it?
Well, we were in the CBC studio on Jarvis and Mutual Street, just above Carlton's, and that was the main headquarters. And so we were in the smaller studio, but during the evening is where they would read the CBC National News. So there's a big desk there. And some of your viewers will remember Knowlton Nash as being one of the main readers, and then Peter Mansbridge came in after that. And so when we wanted to bring our castle set in, they had to move the CBC National News desk over into the corner and push it all over there so we could bring in our set. So it's a pretty crowded studio, and it was the smaller of two that were there. But it was very, there were, I think, 3 cameras, and it was very relaxed. It was just John Duncan, who played the harp in the opening to the show, the theme at the beginning and the end. And then there was Bob Hummy, of course, Friendly, and Rod Coneybear, who operated Rusty and Jerome. So it was really the 3 of us, or 4 of us. And it was very relaxed, and it was fun. It was just, I don't know, it was just very easy to go to work and enjoyable. And Rod was extremely funny. So we were always laughing and just having a good time,
Who did you portray on the Friendly Giant? Who were you?
Well, my parents had built 2 cats and 2 raccoons to play in the big music room, it was called. So some of the shows were done just with Rusty and Jerome. And then on a couple of days a week or 3 days a week, he'd say, we're going into the big music room today. And he'd walk across the set into a larger set. And in the window would be either the 2 cats or the 2 raccoons. So I played one of the raccoons and I played one of the cats. I don't think they were ever on at the same time, because there were 4 puppets and 2 puppeteers. And we stood behind the set, and we had monitors that we look at because we have to see what the camera is seeing, which is what people at home are seeing. So that was basically it. And the music was pre-recorded in the mornings, and then we would sync to the music that had been pre-recorded.
I was going to ask that. A lot of music out of all the shows I've done, there's been bit of a pattern. I was going to ask if there was live music played at the time when you were doing the show, because I know in some of the other shows that we did, music was played live and they would sing live and perform
Right.
it live. So that didn't happen on the Friendly Giant.
Bob played the recorder live. He played it at the beginning and the end, and John played the harp live. Um, when I was doing Mr. Dress Up, we always sang live. The music was live, the piano was live, or guitar. Most of the shows I've done, we've sung live. In this case, neither the cats or the raccoons had voices. So there was nobody, had to listen to me sing on that show.
Well, we know you can sing very well. At least we know you can sing well in rhyme.
Well, I can sing in character. If you want me in a nightclub.
Now, I think if I did my research right, I hope there were over 3,000 episodes of The Friendly Giant.
Ooh,
I think that's the number I saw. That number came up repeatedly.
yeah.
Do you know what episodes? Do you remember any of the episodes? Which one you like the most? That kind of stuff. Like,
I can't I can't really say that because there was never really a story, it was usually he would read a book with Rusty and Jerome, or he'd come over and basically we'd play music. And so it's not like there was a favorite show or a favorite theme. It was the excitement to me, and I think to Bob as well, because he was a wonderful musician, played the clarinet beautifully too, as well as recorder. The excitement for us was when some of the best musicians in Canada came in and pre-recorded the music in the morning. So a lot of your older viewers will know the names Mo Kaufman and Guido Basso and Ed Bickert and Peter Appleyard and Haygood Hardy. And these were all really, really famous names in the music industry, mostly like jazz guys. And there were also a couple of people who played recorder. There was a woman who came in and played recorder. There was a woman who came in and played more classical piano. And the thing that was exciting was that Bob introduced children to all kinds of music. And, I don't think there was any other show on like that at the time. And maybe not for a long time after, where children were actually sat and listened to really beautiful music of one genre or another, and maybe hadn't heard jazz before, so to me that was really exciting. And as a musician myself, I just loved it.
the music to me, like as we're talking, I can hear the theme song running
Yeah.
through my head right now, and it is very soothing and very calming. Do you think
Yeah.
you think he chose that song on purpose to?
I don't know how he came to pick the song, which is called Early One Morning.
Mhm.
It's an old classic piece, and I really don't know how it came to be, but I guess he did I think the sun came up in the morning, didn't it, and
Yep.
the moon at night, and the cow jumped over, and maybe it was all tied into that early one morning. I really don't know, but it's just a perfect fit for such a gentle show.
Now, here's what I really want to know. I think I have an idea, but what was Bob like? What was he like? He seemed very calm, like one of the
Yeah.
calmest people ever. And that I what I think is probably what drew people into the show, because it wasn't one of these, oh my god, look over here, look over there, you know what I mean? It's not one of those shows. It's one of those sit down in front of the fireplace and one of those little chairs that he would put down there, the big rocking chairs, me two for two people, and he felt like it was like that. So was he like that in real life too?
He was actually, surprisingly, maybe, I don't know. I found him to be very calm, soft spoken. I never saw him get angry ever. He, he wasn't razzle dazzle kind of guy. I mean, he was just a very grounded, very lovely person, a real gentleman, very sweet. And he and Rod were really fun together. They had a nice rapport. You know, Bob was more the straight guy, straight man, and you know, Rod, Rusty, and Jerome especially, very dry sense of humor, and I think they really fit well together. You know, and Bob just loved music. He loved playing. We'd be at his home in the country, and he'd have all kinds of musicians come over. And I didn't live too far from him in the country, actually, at one point. And it was just always so fun to be there and having all these famous musicians there jamming. You know, it was just great.
Well, I had the honor of just happen to find Bob's granddaughter on Instagram one day. Uh, Small little story. I'll make it short. Someone posted a picture of the Friendly Giant on there and made some form of comment, and then I commented underneath that one. I honestly forget what it was, and then she commented underneath that, and I figured, wow, is that legit? Is that really Bob's granddaughter? And then we started talking, and yeah, it really was. And in preparation for this show, I think Meta, I'm going to name her right now. Her name's Meta. Awesome. Uh, we become really good online pen pals.
Mhm.
We've been talking with her back and forth. In preparation for this show, I asked her what Bob was like in real life. No one would know better than her. It's a granddaughter. And if you don't mind, I'm going to read a quote. She told me I can quote her on this from
Okay.
the show. I'm gonna read from my phone here,
Yeah.
the quote that she told me that I can quote her from. I asked her. I says, I assume he was the same in real life as he was on set. And she said pretty much what you said. She said, yeah, he was the same. Basically, I would describe him as quiet, powerful, a man of not so many words, thoughtful, decided, potent, kind, and kind on another level. He was always busy having deep thoughts. He loved the simple things and nature. And he did have, I love this little last part here. He did have a kind of underlying twinkle of childlike amusement. And you could tell on the show when they would have, like, when Rusty and Jerome, they would talk, it was like they were talking right to me. Like I was sitting there in the chair and I was watching the big giant man play a really big instrument. It was just soothing. And that's why I said at the beginning of the show it's like a pinnacle of Canadian television. You know, when we announced we did this, we had that we're getting this interview done. We had so many people come up to it like, "Oh my God, the Friendly Giant!" Everybody remembers the Friendly Giant, right? Like, what do people say to you when you say to them, like, "Oh, I did, today's special and read along and the Friendly Giant." When people find out you were on the Friendly Giant.
They kind of flip out. And we're talking at least two generations of people as well.
Yeah.
So, people who are in their, let's see, people who are in their 60s, 50s, 40s, and, their children.
Mhm.
And then if anybody had taped it, they could be showing them, showing these shows to, like, my grandchildren are 3 and 1. And I think it would be a lovely show to show them, because it's so gentle. And I personally think it stands the test of time.
Totally does.
And I remember having this debate with somebody on TVO, on a show on TVO, and debating whether the Friendly Giant would stand up now. And this is like many, many years ago. And I still think it would, because, like you were saying about something like Sesame Street, when it came along, it was boom, 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 boom. And the kids' attention span was constantly interrupted by another image, or, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, like,
Right.
and
Yeah.
it was boom, 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 right? And so I think children really also need this quiet time too. So I mean, I could see my kids, my grandkids sitting there and being very, and wrapped in, up in something that quiet and calming. I think children need that. So
They do.
I would love to see that on the air now. Of course, it will never happen, but I don't know if YouTube has got it. YouTube usually can find anything. So
There are episodes
yeah,
of Friendly Giant on YouTube.
yeah. And
That's
I have some. I have some that Bob gave me a couple of tapes with that were loaded with shows as well. So I do have them. So
there are some, like, when you were talking about generations, my mom, who is in her mid 60s, mid to late 60s, she watched the show.
yeah,
She watched it when she was younger, and then I watched it when I was younger. It was in reruns when I was a kid. I think what it stopped 19 early 1980s.
I don't remember when they took it off the air. I think they were repeating them for a
Yeah.
while.
So
Uh,
I watched it when I was a kid, and when I had my daughter, not so much with my son. My son won't sit and watch it, but when I had my daughter, who is now going to be 13 next month, she watched it as a kid, and she still remembers it.
yeah,
So, and I can guarantee you that when I have grandkids, if I have grandkids, hopefully I have grandkids, they will watch it too.
yeah.
Because
And that's what's wonderful about it. That
it
it's
needs to be, yeah, we need something like this now. We need it, like, I'm
it's the
not.
kind of show that you can leave your kids in front of, because it's dicey to do that, and to leave small children in front. You really have to trust that program, that content, and the makers of that content. You have to trust them implicitly that everything there is good for the kids. There's message, there's entertainment, there's good
Music.
just good messages, nice good life philosophy and so on. And yeah, so I would say when I tell people that yeah, they really, at a certain age, there's a certain age group that just really go nuts, because it is such a wonderful part of their childhoods, and they do remember it as soothing and calming and sweet and safe.
I really wish I would have met Bob in real life, because I think he reminds me a lot of my own grandfather. And I think that was the purpose. I think it might have been the purpose or the point of that, because if he everybody, as you said earlier, everybody needs a person like the Friendly Giant in their life. And that's just something I really wish I would have met him. But I think through you and through watching the show and talking to Meta, how much of an awesome and kind person he was. Now, do you have any funny stories from set? I know there's always some out there. There's always some, like, did you mess up your line? Did he mess up a line or something?
Oh, no, there was nothing to mess up.
No?
There was really no script. They had an outline. They
Really?
really had an outline, yeah. And he and Rod basically would just talk back and forth, and Rusty the Rooster would cut in, and then Jerome and Rod Coneybear would go from this high voice to this deep voice. Like, he could go back and forth like that with those puppets. It was just really amazing. He could interrupt himself constantly, and it was in each voice, and it was quite something. But no, they really, I think that was the nice thing about the show, that they had just a nice conversational kind of a show. Ran about 13 minutes 26 seconds, as I recall. But no, there was the one thing too about Bob, was that he really didn't like children coming into the studio, because he didn't want to ruin this sort of illusion, or this
Yeah.
image of him being a giant. And that was really important to him. He was an incredibly compassionate and ethical person, and he could have made a fortune going to all kinds of merchandise on that show. I mean, can you imagine? And
Oh, I think
he had a couple of I think he had a couple of albums. There might have been a couple of little storybooks, but he did not go that route. And it was just amazing. And I think we all had so much respect for him for not doing that, and not going that route. But I'll tell you a fun little story about when I was on the set. I was doing Today's Special at the same time, by the way.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Just double fisting the Canadian legendary television show.
just what, like from one into the other. And so my baby came along, and we were starting back into production of Friendly Giant, and I was like, oh, my baby's so tiny, like really tiny, only about 3 weeks old, and had to go back to work, right? And so I would take Matt in a little car seat thing, and we would have 2 rehearsals, and I'd put him in behind the set, right behind me. And he was fine. I never cried or anything. And he forget it was a rehearsal, and everybody was very understanding. And, you know, like, we were a big family down there. It was the earlier days of, we're talking 1981 at this point. And then when we were going to actually shoot the show, tape the show, his father, Matt's father, was a producer of the national news up on the 6th floor. And I would take Matt up in his little car seat and sit him down next to his father's desk up there, come back down, tape the show, and then go back up and get Matt. So it was like absolutely perfect, because I was a new mother. I was a nursing mother.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that couldn't happen these days.
it worked. I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure. I'd like to think it could, but yeah, I mean, we were really a much smaller family at the CBC back then, and we'd been together for so long. It was just a wonderful environment, you know.
It really did sound like it. And now going back to an earlier statement you said, so the Friendly Giant didn't have a script per se. So you had an outline, and everything you saw on the show, all the interactions, probably with the exception of the music, maybe, because you knew what was coming and had to put it where, but that was all ad-libbed?
It was not ad lib in the purest sense, because, you know, we had rehearsal before, and they knew what they wanted to say. They knew what they wanted to talk about. And so it was basically, I don't know if it was 1 or 2 cameras, or 2 or 3 cameras, but, you know, there'd be a wide shot, and then there'd be, you know, a shot on Bob, and then there'd be cut over to us and Jerome in the window or whatever. So it was a very simple little show like that, and it was very relaxed that way. And for us, you know, like, the puppets didn't have any words, any lines, and so basically we were there just syncing to the music that was being played back. So it was a very kind of easy show to do. And, you know, it wasn't a case of going anywhere or saying anything or having a cue line or word. Basically, we just played the music. And I really enjoyed that. And I enjoyed syncing to the music so that it was perfect. And I played the piano anyway. So I would hear the rehearsal music, and I knew exactly what to do, and it was very satisfying to be able to sync absolutely to. And then there were drums too, so the drums were played right to. Yeah, if you watch any of the shows, you'll see.
Well, they'll see some of the shows. They'll see some of it. Well, I guess we're gonna close here. There's, since we can't say it to Bob, and since we can't say it to Rod or anything like that, I guess we can say to you, okay, thank you for giving us a show like The Friendly Giant. It is you were one cog in this amazing show that brought amazing memories and just overall relaxedness to Canada, the entire country of Canada, because there's not a person that doesn't know of the Friendly Giant from Vancouver to, you know, to Nova Scotia. There's not a person that doesn't know.
I was hoping Newfoundland as well, but
Well, from coast to coast. I'll cover it and say coast to
coast
coast.
to coast.
Coast to coast to coast. That's right. There's not a person that doesn't know, you know. And I know that the Friendly Giant's going to go on for generations. My kid has watched it. I hope my grandkids watch it. Your grandkids have watched it. You were on the show. Your son was on set, even though he probably doesn't remember. Um, but
I watched the show, that's for sure. You
but
know,
it must be really weird, right before we go. It says it must be really weird when your son watches the show, knowing that on the other side of that set, there he is as a baby. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like he's just on the other side of that wall.
I think he loves that story, you know. Yeah, I love that story too. But I mean, I have to say, you know, when you're going into the studio constantly, and you know, you sort of get used to it, and you take it for granted. I think that goes. It's just human nature. We take things for granted that are always there. And I
Hmm.
think once we were canceled, and it was sort of, you know, a shock and a disappointment, and really sad for us, and just have really appreciated it every year. I think I appreciate it more and more. And when I meet people who've watched it and they thank me, I get a ton of, you know, email and stuff. And I just feel so lucky and thankful that I was on that show and I had the opportunity. And I thank my parents for bringing me in, you know, when I was young, and becoming part of the whole CBC family there, and doing a lot of stuff there apart from Friendly. That I, you know, and I just really did adore Bob, and knew him, you know, as a friend, and being at his place, and knowing his wife Esther and the kids, and his son Rick, who, you know, sadly passed away at a very young age, was also one of the musicians on our show. So, and having that, you know, the kids too. So yeah, I
Well,
feel very lucky.
as a person who watched the show as a fan, uh, thank you, because we can't say it to Bob, we can't say it to anybody else. As I said earlier, thank you for giving us a show like The Friendly Giant,
My
because
honor, really. It was my honor, my pleasure to do that.
we need a show like that today. Like I would give
Everybody says that.
anything,
Yeah.
anything to have it.
Thank you. Thank you for talking to me about it and getting the stories out there. And I hope some more stories, you know, can come
Oh,
out.
if we if you want to do a part two, we totally can. Thank you very much, Nina.
Okay, thank you.
It is late. This little chair will be waiting for one of you, and the rocking chair for another who likes to rock, and the big armchair for two more to curl up in when you come again to our castle. Now I'll close the big front doors and pull up the drawbridge after you're gone. Goodbye. Goodbye.